Jaffe. I don't know if this is on, is this on? I think now it's on testing. I'll have to scream. First of all, Arthur Jaffe was a friend, he was a colleague, he was a compassionate man to me, as he was with each of us individually. And to really say anything about him would only diminish his memory because he was just too great for words. He would come into my office every day that he was at the library, and I knew when he came into my office there would be a special moment. And I put everything aside. I turned off my phone, I shut down my computer, and I gave him my full attention because I knew he would share some kind of wisdom with me, and he always did, whether he talked about his childhood in Pennsylvania, whether he talked about Boca Raton and all the things he did for this community, whether he talked about FAU and the Jaffe Center, or whether he talked about music. And he would come into my office and sometimes comfort me, because he had a way of doing that when I was worried and upset or uptight about something, which I normally can be, and he knew that. He would turn his head, put his hand up, and just simply say, "Everything will be fine." And when he did that, I knew that everything would be fine. But he would also do something else. He would come in and remind me that at one time he had a beautiful voice. And he would come in and sing the songs that I was preparing for the concerts, whether it was the Jewish music concerts or whether it was the American music concert. And the songs we just played, or the song that we just played called Russian Lullaby, was a song that he came into my office and asked me if I knew and if it was in the collection and if I would play it at his 90th birthday. And that's why I chose Russian Lullaby. And I didn't know it, and he sang it to me. And that was the first time I learned Russian Lullaby. After that, he would continue singing songs, and the next piece that we did actually many years ago at the Spirit of America concert called I'll Be Loving You Always. And he came into my office and I told him I was preparing that for the Spirit of America concert, and he started singing I'll Be Loving You Always in my office. And through his sweetness of his voice, I knew how I would have to orchestrate that. So that's why I selected I'll Be Loving You Always, because that's another song he sang. And the final piece that we'll play is a song that he didn't sing to me, but I knew he loved it, and it reflects and really what he was. It's called And the Angels Sing. And I'll play that along with a klezmer tune that was part of And the Angels Sing by Ziggy Elman, because I know Arthur loved klezmer music too, and he never missed a concert. And there is no better way to honor the memory of someone you love dearly if you're a musician than with music. So this is our dedication to Arthur Jaffe.
The Jaffe collection was given to FAU in 1998. The original gift was 2,800 books. We're now up to 12,000. So we needed space, and we've changed the mission to a large extent. Much more hands-on, much more exhibitory, much more museum quality than collection quality. And I think that's what you get when you come in. It's more of a feeling of a museum and lecture hall than it is a book collection. In considering the new space for the Book Arts Center, it was a question of what do we do with the original space here. And what we did, and it turned out to be perfect, we made that into a print shop for printing presses. We got gifts given to us of old printing presses, and now we've got the most beautiful print shop in all of Florida, so we have been told.
Arthur has transformed this collection from a simple collection of books into the Jaffe Center for Book Arts, combining the features of an art gallery, a letterpress studio, and a teaching venue. In the process, he's brought something totally unique to Florida Atlantic University, and we're so fortunate to have had his collection and his presence for so long a time.
If I were buying books just about architecture, then I would have a limitation. I'm buying eclectically. I'm interested in the whole world, and I just don't know what's out there myself. When somebody brings it in there and say, I see the light, and say, boy, I think this can be useful. What does this thing say? I don't know what it says, but I like what it looks, you know. It's like a beautiful woman coming by. Hey, you don't know what she's really like until you know what she's really like. But you gotta like what you see first. The search process, I'm at a point in life here of this collection where the book artists are looking for us. And that's part of the fun of having the collection and having a collection like this. You meet the most interesting people in the world from everywhere. And they come from out of nowhere and appear at your front door and say, I've made a book. I want you to see it. And of course, we want to see it. And that's how we get most of our books. Andrew Binder came strolling in one day and with a rather large book under his arm, saying this is his latest production of books. And he wanted to show it to me. He opened it up and I said, Andrew, you've got a winner here. And he had just come back from 4 years off and on going to Thailand to produce a book, a pop-up, about the Thai temples. And it's now in the Jaffe collection. It's one of a kind. Only one in the world is here. So I proudly show it, and everybody likes to see it. It's a very dramatic book. So the book isn't just to be read. It's to be touched. It's to be heard. It's to be manipulated, like you do with a book that's pop-up. You have to do manipulation. So there's just a lot more variety in what we're doing with them today.
Arthur's legacy is such a strange paradox, and to me it is that is the most intriguing thing about the Jaffe Center. Our focus is certainly on the traditions of the book arts, and these are the things that brought humanity into the information age. But nowadays we can get our information electronically, and the book itself, as an information vehicle, is not quite as important as it used to be. But Arthur's collection focuses equally on the artist's book, and when artists make books, they tend to be nothing at all what we expect a book to be. And this is where we get to the future of the book. It's these books that tend to expand our vision, expand our ideas, expand our creativity, and that to me is what's really the most wonderful thing about Arthur's legacy. It's certainly rooted in the past, but looking to the future for sure.
This is a way of life. Reading is a way of life.
Arthur collects the soul of this world when he looks for books. It's not an academic library, it's not math, it's not science. It's the things that fall in between the words that Arthur always captures, that he finds, the emotion, the spirit. And that's the heart of his collection. He finds the heart of the world.
I don't really want people to remember me particularly. It doesn't matter. I want them to remember the collection and say that's a hell of a collection, and that's all that counts. And I think that's true of everything in life, you know. I'm here, I'm gone, done my best. And if I've left something behind that other people can enjoy, I think I've been very successful. There's a saying, be ashamed to die until you have some victory for humanity. And that's my motto.
Good afternoon. I'm John Kelly, the president of Florida Atlantic University for past 11 months, and one of my great joys was actually getting to know Arthur Jaffe. Even though his voice was not working in the way it had at one time, that glimmer that you saw in his eye in the video was there every time you saw Arthur. He gave that warm smile to people and a genuine spirit that came and touched you when you touched Arthur. I think if you had to say that FAU loved Arthur, that would be stopping short of the truth. FAU adored Arthur. When we had him at the graduation stage, this video played, and at the moment the video stopped, the entire audience stood and applauded his incredible career. And I feel like this university has been blessed in a very special way, and for those family members, I know that he was with you many years. And he was with us for many years, and he lived a long life. At age 93, he left that graduation stage and went back to work. Truthfully, left the stage to go back to work. He's certainly a legend here at Florida Atlantic University. He came to us at a time when most people would be thinking about retirement, but he came to live. He didn't come here to retire. He was thinking of ways he could always be of service to others. As a young Army intelligence officer during World War II, he took part in the Normandy invasion. And once peace had been won, he helped stabilize the ravaged cities of Europe. He went on to work for the creation of the State of Israel as a member of the Jewish Defense Force in Jerusalem. Back home in Butler, Pennsylvania, Arthur played a key role in the growth of his family's retail business, and he was a highly successful fundraiser for the Carnegie Institute and Jewish organizations. Arthur founded the Jewish Federation of Pittsburgh and was a founding director of the Jewish Federation of South Palm Beach. It's FAU's great fortune that Arthur and his second wife, Matja, decided to move to Boca Raton in the late 1980s. Arthur began volunteering at the Wimberley Library, and the relationship just grew from there. It's no exaggeration to say that he had a true love affair with this university, which makes this Valentine's Day celebration especially appropriate for Arthur's life. He donated a priceless collection to this university. Right after I was here, I took my entire administrative team over to the library, everybody that was in the vice presidential level, to meet Arthur and to see the collection. And to this day, they talk about how wonder of the books came to life for them and came to life for so many others. The kids that come to the library that Arthur was always willing to host, the family members that came to the library. He was always just very generous with his time, as Aaron said earlier. As a wonderful gift as his book collection was, Arthur gave even more. He gave us himself, and for that we will all be grateful. No one who ever knew Arthur will forget him. When he was with you, he was really with you. He was giving you his full attention and taking in all that you had to say. His great spirit will live on in the center that he created and in our hearts. He enriched all of our lives immeasurably, just as he enriched the life that we call Florida Atlantic University. He was indeed the greatest of the great generation, and we honor him best by taking a leaf from the artist's books that Arthur himself wrote, the book of his wonderful life. Thank you. Chairman Barber.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Barber, and I have the privilege of speaking today on behalf of the Florida Atlantic University Board of Trustees at this celebration of Arthur Jaffe's life, which, as President Kelly said, was a truly wonderful life. Arthur gave in every conceivable way. He gave his heart, mind, and amazing energy to every cause he supported. From winning the war to creating the nation of Israel to collecting and preserving artist's books. The word that to me describes Arthur the best is passionate. He was passionate about whatever he was doing, and it was such a privilege to have the opportunity to get to know him a little bit. It goes without saying that he was a man of great generosity. The Jaffe Center for Book Arts would never have come into existence without the major financial support from Arthur and his late wife, Meta. He was also a man of tremendous courage, whose wartime valor was recognized by the Bronze Star and the French Legion of Honor. This is a teaching institution, and Arthur was a great teacher. In introducing people of all ages to the infinite variety of his book collection, he taught them to see the world through fresh eyes and nurture their own creativity. Arthur may have grown old in years, but he never grew old in spirit. He was always open to new ideas and saw great possibilities in cultural trends and that others might dismiss as passing fads. A case in point is Arthur's fascination with tattoos he saw on many FAU students. He thought of tattooed people as walking books, and in 2010, he organized a project called Stories of the Skin, Tattoo Culture at FAU. His sons told me there may have been another strategy with that, but that's for another day. About 1,500 students participated in this project, which led to a documentary video and a photo exhibition. The photos and stories behind them have become a part of FAU Library's permanent collection. Arthur was forever young, teaching us all that there are no limits to our ability to learn and grow. I'm very glad that this service is being held in the Lifelong Learning Auditorium because Arthur spent his whole life learning new things and passing along his enthusiasm to others. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I want to thank the family for sharing him with us and offer them our sincere condolences on his passing. We will all miss him very much. We're so proud that he was a member of the FAU community and part of the FAU family, and we'll always remember him and be inspired by his example of a life very truly well lived. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Perry. I'm the provost here at Florida Atlantic University. Thank you all for joining us here on campus today to celebrate the life of a true friend of our university, a champion of the arts, Mr. Arthur Jaffe. I came to know Arthur from my visits to the library. I'd come here over the years to look up a research journal or go into the stacks, but I'd never miss an opportunity to maybe pop into the book center and just marvel at some of the books and the collection that Arthur had collected there in the Jaffe Book Center. I'd like to take just a moment to highlight the impact that Arthur made on the lives of so many students and faculty here at Florida Atlantic University. The Jaffe Book Center for the Jaffe Center for the Book Arts is indeed an international model for hands-on research in the humanities. Our historians use the center as a workplace in which students can see history in action. Our artists teach the aesthetics of books, and our sociologists take a comparative look at how the Jaffe collection spans so many cultures. Arthur's passion for education and his ongoing dedication to sharing his one-of-a-kind archives has made an extraordinary impact on our campus. I'd like to just take a moment and tell a short story, which is just one of the examples of what many in our community have experienced in their own unique way. A few years back, one of our faculty members took his entire class to the Jaffe Center to produce a beautifully detailed print of the 14th Amendment. The staff in the center helped the faculty member and helped the students set the letters of the text, which so plainly states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States, and no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. One of those students took that print home, gave it to her 7-year-old niece, who gleamed with pride at the crisp imprint of the letterpress. And that niece jumped at the opportunity one Saturday to visit the Jaffe Center and make her own print, which she took home and hung proudly on her bedroom wall. Please visit the Jaffe Center, and you will feel the drive to share what you learn with someone you love, especially on this day, Valentine's Day. That's the gift that Arthur gave us, one that can be shared over and over again. He spread a love for art, for history, and for engaging the print medium in a way that is hard to do anywhere else other than at the Jaffe Book Center. This wonderful cycle will continue. In the years to come, our faculty and students will benefit from Arthur's tremendous passion. We are eternally grateful to him for giving something so special to Florida Atlantic University. Thank you, Arthur, for all that you have given us. We will miss you.
Hi, I'm Bill Miller, and I was Dean of the FAU Libraries from 1987 until just a few weeks ago when I retired. I don't know how I first met Arthur, but if you were interested in books or involved with the Federation in the late 80s, you knew Arthur. And he started, started coming to the library as a volunteer, and and I envisioned him as a replacement for Dr. Otto Bettman, who was our scholar in residence at that time. And he accepted that role. But, you know, Arthur had a large and growing collection, and he reached that point that all serious collectors reach when they realize that their collection has to go somewhere. And he was thinking of giving it to the University of Pittsburgh. And I said, you know, if you give it to FAU, I'll build a special room for it. And just as importantly, you can come and be the curator and work with it all the time and work with people and show people your collection. Well, that appealed to him, and he did give us the collection. And I built a room which I thought was 3 times larger than we would ever possibly need for it, which now holds our print shop. But, you know, when people come to the collection, they don't want to leave. And that can be a problem sometimes. You know, I brought my father at one point, somewhat reluctantly on his part and on mine, and 2 hours later I pried him away very unwillingly from the collection. Very often, you know, we get a visiting legislator or some important high muckety-muck, and they have, you know, 20 minutes to see the library. And I guess I would kind of pray that Arthur wasn't in the Jaffe Center when I brought them there, because the 20 minutes would go very quickly, because they didn't want to leave and he didn't want them to leave. The thing that he loved the best was showing people the books. And he would show a little child, or he would show a group of retirees, or he would show a class. It didn't matter. He loved to show that collection. And he would show things that he knew that people would be entranced by, and they were. So, you know, he was an instructor. He was a library instructor, which is what we try to do in the reference department of the library, but he did it in that Jaffe collection. And he, you know, there are some other collections of comparable size and quality, but there's no other collection like this that is actually open and available to the public, and the public is encouraged to come in and physically handle it and look at it. Most of these collections are locked away in a rear area of a stack somewhere, and you'd have to know somebody to be able to look at something. That's not the way with the Jaffe collection. It's really for the public. And, that's the way he liked it, and that's the way we like it, and that's the way it's going to remain. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marianne Haycook. I met Arthur in May 2001 when I was enrolled in a graduate course creating artist books at Florida International University. It was taught by Carol Todaro, a friend and book artist who has many wonderful books in the Jaffe collection. Part of the course curriculum was a field trip one evening to the Jaffe Center. That visit resulted in the most magical journey into the world of book arts, conducted by this charismatic, intelligent man named Arthur Jaffe. He was so clearly passionate and ready to share his beloved books through his unique perspective and his engaging enthusiasm for the art form. That evening, I knew I had met a special man. He became a great friend and mentor for almost 14 years. Arthur inspired all who visited the Jaffe Center to open their eyes, their heart, and their creativity to what he liked to call his visual and happy collection. He had that innate ability to see potential in people, and he helped nurture it. A mentor to many, he shared his knowledge, his encouragement, his guidance, and he loved to celebrate with great joy each person's growth and creative accomplishments. He was kind, loyal, and wise, and will not be forgotten. The writer Ananias Nin once said, "Each person represents a world in us, a world that could not be born until they arrive. And it is only by this meeting that a new world is born." Oh, what a rich world of friendships was born when Arthur arrived in our lives. As I look out over this vast universe of friends here today, I see Arthur at the center, all of us touched in some way by him. This ever-widening world of friends will continue to grow into the future because of Arthur's vision, his generosity, and his instinct to follow his own path, his own dream. Together we celebrate our precious friend, Arthur. Please take a moment to reflect on the time that Arthur arrived in your life, and you too knew he was special. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Rita Pellin, and I'm the Interim Dean of University Libraries at Florida Atlantic University. The Jaffe Center for Book Arts is a place of enchantment and discovery. There is a pleasant, warm, receptive ambiance and a wonderful aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Artist books are art objects in the form of a book. Artists have been active in printing and book production for centuries. But artists' books are primarily a late 20th century art form. Arthur Jaffe desired and succeeded in making the Jaffe Center a hub for all of those interested in viewing an imaginative and fascinating collection of artist books, and as a refuge for those yearning to continue a journey of lifelong learning, scholarly inquiry, and study of artistic expression in this genre, and also just to have fun. Arthur had a way of engaging all visitors who came to the JCBA, regardless of their socioeconomic status, their education level, their age, gender, ethnicity, nationality. He was very kind and welcomed everyone. Arthur spent time talking about the collection and the artists who created the items. In this way, Arthur endeared people, and over time, built a large following of ardent supporters. Many of you are here this afternoon. Arthur was not hesitant to seek answers to questions and to challenge himself by delving into disciplines that he had never studied. He was always searching for new JCBA activities, and he never ceased in finding ways to integrate the collection into opportunities for study across the disciplines, from the sciences and engineering to architecture and the arts, literature, history, social sciences, and education. His thirst for knowledge is evident in the broad range of subject areas represented in the collection. Arthur's vision was to expose these riches, and he set out to find ways to promote the use of the Jaffe treasures. An example was the establishment of the Salzburg Artist in Residence AIR program. There have been 5 AIRs to date, Dorothy Simpson Krause, and I believe she's here if she wants to stand or raise her hand, Lorna Ruth Galloway, Paula Marie Gurley, Tom Virgin, and Julia Arendito. The AIR program enables artists working in the book arts to come to the Jaffe Center on a semester basis to work and teach at the center. This was a novel approach to promote the center as a means of exchanging creative ideas that would be transformed into a final product that would be added to the center's collection. While here, the artist produces a creative project using the JCBA studios and also teaches workshops to FAU students and the general public, and mentors FAU students as well. The Salzburg AAR program gives students the opportunity to work alongside highly trained and creative book artists. Arthur was always thinking about the future, and one goal was to add a paper-making studio capability to JCBA. He learned of the possibility of using space in one of the T buildings, and he was involved at the time in saving the T buildings from demolition, and he just loved the idea that the studio would be located in an old Army airfield building. Eventually, Arthur was successful in securing the space in T6 for the paper-making studio, another dream of his that became a reality. He was also always thinking outside the box, adventurous and eager to try new things. For example, he coordinated a car show in the new FAU auditorium, and he, as was mentioned previously, developed the idea of the Stories on the Skin tattoo culture at FAU project. I admire Mr. Jaffe for his determination and persistence. He fulfilled his dream to build a place where learning would flourish and people would be exposed to new perspectives through the medium of a collection of one-of-a-kind original artist books. He introduced me to the world of book arts, and for that I'm forever grateful. Arthur Jaffe, thank you. FAU and the FAU libraries are a better place because of your contributions.
Hi there. My name is Brooke. I am the senior studio assistant at the Jaffe Center for Book Arts. I've been working there for about 3 years, and I have been involved at the Jaffe Center for my entire college career from literally day one. Walked in and found my very first college class was moved to the Jaffe Center to be taught by John Catrone. So this place has had an incredible impact on my life. And it's also, I suppose, worth noting that were Arthur introducing me to you today, he would have interrupted me by this point, taken me by the tricep and said, "Do you see why I come to work every day?" She's Jewish, too. there is no way to be super formal after being introduced like that with that much love and affection genuinely from a person who created the place that you work in, you know. It's very easy, I think, to come to work every day and to think you're looking at your boss or you're looking at your coworkers and that you have to be professional and you have to be on top of it. And when you're in an environment as professional and incredible as the Jaffe Center is for an artist, you want to seem on top of your game, but just there was so much love in that place that there's no way you could go in there with a straight face and keep it that way. And I'm sure if you've been to the center and been on one of our tours, you probably already know that, and I'm preaching to the choir, I guess. I was responsible for a lot of things in my time here. This is my last semester, and the position I occupy is exclusively for students, which is incredible, because it is such a life-changing position for an art student especially. But we definitely, you know, I did a number of things, and I think especially when Arthur was in there almost every day, I did a lot of personal work for him. I got to chauffeur him around, and he'd never batted an eyelash at, you know, my beat-up '98 Civic with the dented door. You know, he was super excited to have me type out his emails. If he received an email in the past 3 years that did not have 8 spaces between words, it was from me. And if you happened to come in for a tour on my watch, or even not, but certainly on my watch, Arthur was so happy to be my tour co-host. And definitely, I'm sure you've heard, those were much longer tours. And much, much more wonderful, I really must say, in every possible way. Because there's really something completely different about having him explain where he found each of those books and how they came to be in the collection and what they meant to him and how exciting it was meeting the artist. Or, you know, there is so many different elements that really transcend the book itself and its presence in our collection. Like, we know they're wonderful art objects and we know they're amazing, but they're part of this narrative, which was really constructed around his tastes and the tastes he cultivated through a very, like, history-driven life. So if it's all right with you guys, I folded a bunch of these programs that you're holding today, and we brought a couple of books with us that are really folding-centric, they're really enjoyable, and 2 other wonderful creative people from this library are going to come up and help me show them to you today. Just because we figure if you haven't had the chance to get over, you might like to know what you're missing. And you are welcome to come on over right after this presentation, and we'll have lots of candy, which is his other favorite thing.
Sorry, I actually did bring the electronic version of the book, which I was typing at about 1 o'clock in the morning last night. My name's Terry Burns, and I won't give you the long title, official, multiple names that Dr. Miller was so wonderful to give me. They're all on your program. But I'm here today and following that presentation of the book because that was very whimsical, and I'm sure you would agree with me that that's a whimsical way to describe and to show a book. And the definition of whimsy and whimsical, according to the Webster's dictionary, is something that's unusual, playful, or in an amusing way. And that's just like Arthur. And we're here today to honor Arthur, and as all of us are. He was my mentor and a dear friend for 24 years. And I actually would like to remind Dr. Miller of exactly when we did meet Arthur. I happened to have received a wonderful parting gift from my retired dean when he left. He went through that office of his, which next to mine is probably almost as bad, and found this yellow agenda from August 1990. And on this agenda, which is welcoming the Cultural Arts Committee of the JCC in West Boca. At the time, we actually weren't even in West Boca. And the Cultural Committee list is attached. And a lot of you are here, Sylvia, and quite a few of you have made it here today. And on the top page is Arthur Jaffe, Terry Burns, Dr. William Miller. So that's when we met Bill. And from then, it was just the most incredible friendship, and I can't, I think even without the written word, I have to stop even looking. There's so many stories. Everybody has Arthur stories, and we're going to continue that when we move to the reception. But Arthur helped me through a time where I went from a layperson who was an artist and a curator to a director of the Rosen Museum Gallery to someone who learned how to talk to people and find out what they wanted and what was their inspiration and how they would like to develop either a collection or a donation just to give to something that they were passionate about. And I learned that from your dad. And I learned it in a way of where I don't want to ask people for money. And Arthur would say, sure, they'll tell you what they want to give. And that's exactly what Arthur did for me in that respect, because I was an artist and I was like, I can't ask anybody for money. I just want to put art on the wall. And there he was there too. If I was missing something in a case, or I was just baffled at this room and I was missing something in the installation, there would be Arthur right behind me going, okay, what can I do? How about moving that there and moving that there? And wait a minute, I have some stuff at home I'll bring you. And that was my relationship with Arthur when I first met him. And over the years, things changed, and Arthur moved here, and then eventually I moved here to Arts and Letters and had a beautiful 2-3 years of working as the public affairs officer for Arts and Letters. And there's Arthur and Maida, and they're bringing this wonderful installation to the university galleries with Rod Falls. And I'm working with Arthur again. And all this time we're still friends, and still my mentor, and still a man that I look to for any kind of wisdom that just would hit me. I'll call Arthur. I want to just tell a couple of stories to end my time here on the stage, which you can tell I'm not too comfortable. I'm usually behind the scenes. And that was that Arthur was also intimately involved with my family, my kids as they were growing up, my parents. And unfortunately, my mother just recently passed as well. And but this wonderful story. The last couple years that Arthur was working, I was picking him up and taking him to the office on a daily basis. And it was sort of after the family and I had been working for about a year at least, maybe 2, to try to get Arthur to give up his car. And the only way we could get him to give up his car and stop driving was I said, I'll pick you up, Arthur. And so there we go. And so it would be my daily, wow, I get to pick up Arthur today. And those would be the time I would cherish, because it would be my time alone with him in the car, driving him to the office and hearing what he had to say about what he was going to do with his day. He'd ask me about my kids, my family. But notoriously, every time I would get Arthur in the car is the time when my mother would be calling me, because if I hadn't called her by 8:30, she'd be wondering, what's wrong? What's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. So on my Bluetooth, here we go. I'm driving, Arthur's in the seat next to me, and my mother and Arthur are having a conversation. So that's one story. Then the last story I wanted to leave you with that was just kind of one of those you had to be there, but it's a funny story. We've got a lot, I am a communications person, I'm a cultural affairs person, I'm a donor relations person, but there was tons of press on the Jaffe Center for Book Arts over the years. We got print press, we got television press, all sorts of press. And one gentleman named Scott Iman, who is an amazing arts reporter for the Palm Beach Post, came and spent an entire day, talk about not wanting to leave. Scott did not want to leave. So he came in and we spent the day together, and Arthur was obviously always the ever, please stay, I have more to show you soul, or let's go to lunch at my favorite place downstairs, Einstein's, which now is Chick-fil-A, but I won't go there. And we would go, so we went down and we were spending the day, and of course Scott doesn't have nearly enough to write his story because he's just getting all these wonderful stories from Arthur. And we go to lunch together, and you know Arthur likes sweets. So what he loved at Einstein's wasn't the coffee, it was the hot chocolate. So we're having lunch together, and Arthur's chit-chatting away, and of course he's dressed up beautifully that day because there's a donor event that night. And he goes to grab his hot chocolate, and it went all the way down the leg of his pants. So we continue the rest of the day, so don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Terry always carries her Tide stick with her. So we go back to the Jaffe Center. Scott finishes his interview. We go on with the day, and Arthur says, well, can we go, do you have your Tide stick today? And I said, sure I do. He says, well, would you mind? And I said, Arthur, it's all the way, like from the top of your pants down to the bottom of your pants. I'm not quite sure if I have enough Tide inside here, but we can try. So we go into my office. I have these beautiful leather chairs that were donated at some period of time that I'm sure Dr. Miller would remember. And he sits down, and we turn the chair around, and my back's to the door of my office. And Arthur sits down, puts his leg out, and there I'm going, Arthur, if I got to get to that stain, I've got to stick my hand all the way up your pants. And I said, what if somebody walks in? And Arthur said to me, so? They know I love you. It's no big deal. So I went, okay. And I sat there, and man, I got the entire stain out. He went to the donor event that night, and that was an Arthur Jaffe story. So I have plenty more to say, but how I really just wanted to end what my comments was that we know he was an extraordinarily accomplished man. I mean, how much more could you accomplish in one lifetime? He was the most modest man I ever met, especially for someone who accomplished so much. And we will all miss Arthur, but deep down in the quiet moments, we will all hear him. He was my mentor, he was your mentor, in whatever way he mentored you. I thank you for coming today. And now I'm going to introduce Joel Jaffe, who is not on the program, but will be speaking on behalf of the family.
Doctor, Professor, Captain, Mr. Jaffe, Artie, Uncle Arthur, stepfather, father-in-law. To the four of us, he was just Dad. We grew up in a very special home. We were given very special gifts. We would rent a cabin at Cook's Forest in the Allegheny National Forest and take a vacation. For us, that was roughing it. We went to Niagara Falls as a family, and Dad wanted to take a picture of all of us, and he introduced us to the word kakapipi, which helped make us laugh and smile. We spent many summers at Savannah on the beaches all day, and that was where my mother's side of the family was from, and had a great time in the Southern culture part of the Jaffes. The program talks a lot about, and you've heard some of Dad's interests. We kids believe they were retreats from us. You have to understand, all four of us were born in the 50s, which meant that in the mid and late 60s, there he had 4 young adults, the adult being very loosely used. And so Dad learned and enjoyed playing tennis, but not at a club, not somewhere fancy. It was on the asphalt courts of our high school, outside. And it really didn't matter on the weather. He enjoyed acting in the little theater, maybe more than he ever should have, but he enjoyed it. He and his brother bought a sailboat, the Zebulon. Google it, you'll figure it out. But it was never quite big enough for the family to go on it. My mother and my father and maybe 1 or 2 others, but not the family. In our house in Butler, we had a swing in our living room. Not a piece of art that looked like a swing, not some fragile piece that somewhere along the line he had collected, but a full-on, bolted to the ceiling, hand-woven swing. And my mother loved swinging in it. And my father would play Sarah Vaughan and Billie Holiday and Mel Torme and go on. And along those walls were many of the art pieces that today are in the Jaffe Center, and the books that went on to kind of be, if you will, the DNA for the Jaffe Center. And it is quite a tribute. You know, at this point, I would tell you that Dad would probably want us to say a prayer, and this being the Sabbath would be appropriate, and it would be something along the lines of, God, please forgive all those who have presented today for going on about my attributes and my contributions, particularly Aaron for the embellishment on my singing. And God, equally, forgive me for enjoying it so damn much. Dad had his rituals. I think we all do in life, right? But for Dad, they were very, very unique. Sundays, he would get up early and drive to Lindora, a part of Butler, Pennsylvania, across from Pullman Standard Steel Mill, where they made railroad cars, so he could get this great, crusty rye bread. He then would go up to Institute Hill, where there was a small market that carried the New York Times, and get a can of sardines and a six-pack of the cheapest beer he could find. And he'd come home. And Dad didn't just read the New York Times, he devoured it. He ate it, he just poured over it. But to get rid of all of us, popped the sardines. Worked like a charm every time. And he'd sip the beer. He never really drank one. We're never sure, nor will we ever admit where the other 5 went, but that's another story. He was not ever afraid to pick us up from synagogue because he enjoyed us being of the Jewish faith. And that wasn't really it. Our synagogue shared a parking lot with Howard Johnson's. True. Which at the time carried the best ice cream, hand-packed, right? And we didn't buy pints, and we didn't buy quarts, we bought half gallons. And Dad would get home, and it wasn't Neanderthal scooping it. No, Dad was very strategic and surgical in his enjoyment of his ice cream, and straight scoops, and straight along. And you could reopen it, it looked brand new, but down. I could go on, but I won't. At this point, I think Dad would have told me to probably stop and be brief but brilliant. I would tell you, though, that he also had a very tough mind but a kind heart. I would tell you that he gave a lot more than he ever took. I would tell you that he taught us, you may not always remember what people say and remember what people do, but you're always going to remember how you made them feel. And Dad always made you feel special. So I ask that the next time you go to the Jaffe Center and you walk in, stop for a minute, pause, whisper kakapipi, smile, and remember he was just Dad.
How do I follow that? Hello, my name's John Cutrone. I'm the director of the Jaffe Center for Book Arts. I do thank you all to all the Jaffe family. It really means a lot that you're here to me. And thanks also a couple others, Denise and Izat, fair play. I want to thank you both just because. And the rest of you, you all know you have my undying appreciation. I tell it to you over and over again. We could not do the things we do at the center were it not for you and your support of the Jaffe Center for Book Arts, or the Arthur and Maida Jaffe Center for Book Arts. We never call it by its full name. It's always JCBA or the Jaffe Center, or I hear students say we're meeting at the Jaffe today, or going to the Jaff. And I like that. I like all these, they're sort of terms of endearment, and I think they're lovely. But it is important sometimes to remember where it is we come from, and it is important to sometimes to say the full name. So
I did not work very much with Maida. I only met her 3 or 4 times before she died in 2001. Arthur, on the other hand, I knew very well. I worked with him 5, sometimes 6, 7 days a week over the last 14 years. I guess I just want to tell you a few things that like the Arthur Jaffe that I knew. So one thing I can tell you that resonated throughout his life is ice cream, apparently. Because the Arthur Jaffe I knew could make a meal of ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner if he was allowed to. We would sometimes offer him some other things. But if you go to Sunny's Gelato Cafe on US 1, just north of 20th Street, you are probably in Arthur's second favorite place outside of the Jaffe Center. He would go there and he would have himself, I think usually a milkshake, right? And a cookie. And if you go there, as I think you should raise your glass, be it milkshake or whatever, to Arthur Jaffe. And I'm sure that he will hear you. I'm sure that he will be smiling upon you. The Arthur Jaffe I knew was a voracious reader, and the New York Times thing, that never ended. That continued on. Yeah, he did not read what you might expect. Like, I can't say over these 14 years I saw him very often with a novel or with a book of nonfiction. There were a few, but mostly the New York Times every day. He would read the Times. He would read the catalogs that came from book dealers. He would pore over these the same way that, if you can imagine a gardener up north in the winter when they receive a seed catalog, that sense of excitement, that would be Arthur with a book dealer catalog. And he would tick off things like things he would like to purchase for the collection, or books that he owned already in the collection. And he especially loved when they had gone up in value too. He liked to watch their appreciation in value. And he would say to me sometimes, I bought this book in 1993 for $300, and now $4,000, things like that. He loved that. That was a great hobby, I think. He read a lot of periodicals too. So we have things that come into the center like Hand Paper Making magazine. You can't find it at Barnes and Noble, I don't think. Matrix, which is a letterpress printed periodical that comes out of England twice a year. So he would read these. He would read the information bulletin of the Library of Congress, and he'd find 2-3 times a day something fascinating, and he'd want to share these articles with me. And nowadays we share things on Facebook, right? Things like this. There's an article. Arthur would come to my door though with the article, and he would hand it to me and say, I think you'll want to read this. And it would be an article about Japanese paper making, or about letter forms, or about fly fishing. It would just be, some of them would be way out there, but he would always find something fascinating in these articles. And at first, when I first started working there, 2001, it was easy to keep up with these things because it was a pretty quiet place back then. But over the years, the Jaffe Center has become a pretty hopping place, very busy. And this continued all the way though. And so, like I said, sometimes on a good day, 2-3 times a day, he would darken my office door, and I'd look away from my computer, and he'd be there with an article, and he'd hand it to me, and he'll say, you'll want to read this, and I would say thank you, and I would place it on a pile to my right that had the last 2 weeks worth of articles as well. Eventually the pile would get a little unwieldy, and I'd have to neaten it up, and I might move it over to the credenza. But then the next day, this would continue, and this would go on. This had gone on, I guess by 2008, things were already getting a little out of hand. Piles on the credenza, piles on the floor, which I realized if I put them like against the wall, I could get more height there too. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that Arthur Jaffe is responsible for my messy office. But if you've been in my office, there's a chair you can sit on usually, and that's about it. And I will say, I think Arthur certainly laid the foundation for my, for my messiness. And it will take me quite a long time, I think, to emerge from this situation that I'm in. But I will always think of Arthur every time I read these articles that he brought me, because they are just layers and layers. It's like a sedimentary rock, really. Strata of articles that I have to get through. But that's okay. I think it's wonderful. I think the most important thing for all of us to remember about Arthur, at least certainly for me, just this sense of, what can I say? He really tuned into the eternal yes. He was just the most positive person, and he took, I can come up with some wacky ideas, but luckily he came up with wackier ones. But he would take these ideas and he would say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And we would find ways to make things work. I thought the car show was really out there, but we made that work. But that was just, he believed in positivity. He would not listen to the doomsday prophecies, and he would give no voice to the naysayers. He just listened. If you gave him these ideas, he lifted you up. He gave you that boost that you needed to make something happen out of an idea. And that is a great lesson for us all, for you, for me, just to remember to lift people up and give them what they need to make things work. I want to show you something. It's a book I just bought for the collection just a week and a half ago. And I know those of you in the way back, you won't be able to see it, so I'll describe what's going on. It's a book by Chris Fritton, and he was a visiting artist at the center just a week and a half ago. Arthur was actually really excited to meet him, and he didn't get to. Chris he's doing this project called the Itinerant Printer, and he's visiting print shops across the country, and we were only his third stop. So I bought this book from him, and it is comprised entirely of letterpress printed QR codes. And if you're not familiar with the QR code, what you do is you scan the code with your phone, and it usually calls up a website. In this case, though, it calls up a poem, and this is a book of poetry. In order to read the poems, you actually need your phone. You have to scan each page, and the poem pops up on your phone. And this might seem simplistic or even maybe a little gimmicky. But to me, I saw this and thought, here's really the first successful bridge between the traditional book and the digital book. And Arthur would have loved this. He absolutely would have loved this. Just because he just loved this innovation toward the book form. Another one of my wackier ideas was which Arthur so graciously said, yeah, we can do this, was let's make this not so much just a center for book arts, but just a center for creativity, because books don't just happen, they take inspiration. And so to that end, one of the things we did was launch a series of gallery concerts. We called them salon concerts at first, but we decided gallery fitted the theme better because these concerts happened in our intimate space in the Book Arts Gallery. So maybe 50 people would be there for a concert. We had people like Matt Alber and Jane Siberry. And most recently, it was just a couple of weeks ago, Anne Azema and Joel Cohen from the Boston Camerata. And they were sorry to have missed Arthur. Arthur was not well at the time, so he did not come. But Anne heard about Arthur's passing, and she sent us a song. It's just a couple of minutes long. It's a French medieval song, and she just wanted us to share this with you today. And Ben, if you can play the audio. I don't know. Oops. I think that was it. It's just once. I don't know what the lyrics say, but I listened to it many times, and I decided it must say, thank you, Arthur. We love you, and Godspeed. Okay, it's also my job to tell you that this celebration of Arthur's life and legacy continues at the Jaffe Center for Book Arts, and we hope you'll join us there. It is a lovely day out, and it's a great day for a walk. So if you can walk there, please do. What I would suggest is leaving the building and turning left. And we actually will have student volunteers along the way to guide you. But it's just a short walk past the student union and then towards the parking garage and then the library. And we do have a shuttle bus operating as well, but the shuttle bus only seats 14. So please, if you can walk, please walk and save the bus for those who cannot. At the center, you'll find a reception, ice cream, cookies, chocolate. These are the things that Arthur loved. You'll also find there is an exhibition of some of Arthur's favorite books from the Jaffe collection. There's a contemplation tent by Louise Silk, who's a quilt artist, and it's installed in the book studio. And there you can sit for a few moments and contemplate what this great guy meant to you. And there's also a book in there that we'd love for you to write your thoughts, write your memories of, write your Arthur story. And there's also an open mic, because we realize that all of you probably have Arthur stories too, and so this is your venue to share them, is at the Book Arts Gallery. I'm just going to close with just one last thing. It was the day that Arthur died, Facebook was lighting up with things about him from all, not just here, all over the country. This guy touched so many people internationally, really. But his friend Seth, who could not be here today, he wrote something which I really loved, and I wanted to read it to you. He wrote, "Today you should curl up in a chair with your favorite book, eat more chocolate ice cream than you are supposed to, be passionate about the beauty and wonder that is all around us, flirt with a pretty lady, and never apologize for who you are, because Arthur Jaffe is no longer here to do that for us." Thank you for coming.